Hello and welcome to another video by Rick Miracle. Me. In my series that I started in 2013, Freemasonry and Satanism. And this is going to be another one for the series number 281, and this will be part 4. It is April 15th, 2020. The whole world is in lockdown. Strange times. The question is it all real? Is it all sincere? It's the first time that anything like this has happened in history of the world that we know. The whole world in lockdown. I can only think of one other situation where chaos existed all over the world, and that would have been Noah's flood. Then again, you had World War I and World War II. But the whole world wasn't involved in World War I and World War II. There were some pockets where people were not involved. So I've been looking at these books with my series Freemasonry and Satanism. I read books. And none of the materials that I make book reviews on is fictionist material. Or isn't. I believe everything is nonfiction. It's documented facts about history. Things are going on by seriously qualified authors. So series 281 was on the Phoenix Journals. And you can get them at used bookstores. I have about 22 of these journals. AIDS, the last great plague. So you got a whole journal talking about plagues, even man-made plagues. And right now the world is on lockdown because of a coronavirus, they tell us. Phoenix Journal, God said, "Let there be light," and creation became. Depopulation collection. Rape, ravage, pillage, and plunder of the Phoenix. Think about this for a minute. I think in February, I was watching videos on YouTube, doing my daily observance and research and paying attention. And Rick Sanchez on RT News channel and Glenn Beck on his channel, there were different people reporting that they were feeding the banks across the United States about $500 billion a night. And then, of course, we had the March 13th, Friday the 13th. I thought that was an ominous time. But pretty much the United States went into lockdown. And then they passed the stimulus program and passed $2.2 trillion bill. And then a week ago, or earlier this week, the Federal Reserve announced it was going to help prop up the economy with a couple trillion. So I'm thinking, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, what trillion in the year 2020 have the people who control our world sucked out of the money system just in the United States alone? So you got this book, Rape, Ravage, Pillage, and Plunder. I think some of the politicians have been calling for the United States to go into bankruptcy. So you just have to wonder, you know, with all this stuff going on, is somebody pillaging the American money system if they're going to go into bankruptcy? Are they taking out all the money they can for themselves before they do that? Is there something planned in the future? Creation, the sacred universe. So these Phoenix Journals Spiral to economic disaster. Lifeboat measures if you act now. Sorting the pieces. Phoenix Journals. So I have about 22 of these. I have some more. And you can find them at the Phoenix Journal website. Free PDF. There's 120 of these journals. Free PDF. If you're not working and you're sitting at home, you got no excuse not to create a library on your computer. And then they have some journals that were never published on the Phoenix Journal website, 4winds10.com. And I've been making videos out of the unpublished journals, the published journals, and from 1990 to the year 1999, they were producing these newspapers. And I've been printing some of these out and making videos. From 1990 to 1999, 10 years, British mind control plot to overthrow America. Travis Stock, Freemasonry, Nazis, MK Ultra. So these newspapers are like 100 pages, 109 pages, 89 pages. Contact newspaper, Phoenix Journals, website 4winds10.com. So much information. So on the Phoenix Journal website, to make the story short, you can go get the newspapers. The Phoenix Liberator from 1990 to 1991, 2 years. Then they had some internal politicking going on, lawsuits. And the people doing the Phoenix Journals and the Phoenix newspapers, the Liberator, later the Contact. So they continued making the newspapers every week. Bush sells out to the Soviets. And some of these newspapers were only 47 pages or 60 pages. So free PDF, you can get the newspapers. We are moving into the neck of the funnel. Contact newspaper, April 6, 1993. Real war is on the mental battlefield. Year of the Patriot, January 10th, 1995. UFOs, the Grand Deception, and the Coming New World Order. So I suppose you can see the point is there's plenty of material for this 10-year period, 1990 to 1991. From the published journals I just showed you, you can find them on 4winds10.com or other Phoenix Journal websites. I think there's a couple websites. Or at used bookstores online. The unpublished journals, you have to go on the website and you can download all of the published journals, all of the unpublished journals, the banned journals, all for free PDF onto your computer. Every week for 10 years, they were doing the newspaper. First 2 years, Liberator newspaper, then the Contact newspaper. And there's a plethora of information written by well-known people, many of them, and authors from all over the world were contributing to this cause to try to get the word out. So I made, on this Phoenix Journals, unpublished Phoenix Journals, Freemasonry and Satanism Series 281, I've been focusing on Journal 139. I made Part 1 and Part 3. And on this one, Part 162, unpublished journal. This is Part 2 and now Part 4. A whole journal focused on the elites' fascination or obsession with overpopulation on the planet and the things that they plan to do about it. So I've been reading this here, as you can see. I continue to highlight the material here. So there was a book that I did a book review on. All right, had to get my little binder here. The Videos by Rick Miracle. So I keep a list of my Freemasonry and Satanism series in a binder here, so I can just know where I'm going. And I'm up to 281. This page you're looking at is 1 to 50. But the book review I did on the I just saw it here. The Report from Iron Mountain, Series 28. In the middle of this video, Series 28 by John Doe. So, back in the 60s, the government, got together a bunch of, I guess you could call scientists and other leaders to come up with a plan for a substitute for world control, for the government to control the world and apparently control the population using methods other than wars. Because after the nuclear bombs were dropped in Japan, they realized they could not have another war like that and drop bombs all over the planet. So they had to find a substitute. And one of the substitutes was a group called the Report from Iron Mountain. And like I said, Series 28, which I had published on Vimeo.com. And Vimeo just shut down my channel a few days ago after me signing up on Vimeo 10 months ago, because YouTube canceled my account that I had since 2011. So apparently there's a lot of chatter on the internet about channels being taken down on YouTube and Vimeo and Twitter and Facebook, and people's websites being taken down, and all kinds of attacks on people trying to get out the truth. So that's why I share this material, and I emphasize, please go to the 4winds10.com or the Phoenix Journal websites and get those journals, the published ones, the unpublished ones, the banished ones, the Liberator newspaper, the Contact newspaper, all PDF, all free. Put them on your computer, put them on a hard drive, make copies, get them to people, read them, use your brain, because it seems to be a very urgent issue right now. People trying to figure out WTH, what the heck is going on? So you can see I got all these 51 to 95. So if you really want to know of all the ones I have, I think it's posted on my rickmiracle.com website, a list of all of these. But you can pause your computer and try to print out the page. If you want a list of everything that I've done, books that I've read and made videos on the Freemasonry and Satanism series, that's up to 189. And all these book reviews, some of them, like the Blue Lodge Handbook, I made 12 two-hour videos. So some of them are 2 videos on the book review, some are 6 and 8 and 3. So from 281, well over 500 videos, many of them 2 hours, on these different books of my research for 15 years, sharing with people. And I do have some other series where I was making videos on press releases and research material, the New World Order media and press releases. And then in June and July last year, or the year before, time is flying, I was doing some live streaming radio programs at noontime, and that lasted about a month and a half before YouTube canceled that. They didn't want what I was saying to get out there. I wonder why. And then, of course, I've been doing the chemtrails and sky spraying, geoengineering videos since 2011, after discovering in 2005 that we're being sprayed like we're bugs. And apparently it has a lot of damage caused by the dumping of heavy metals and biological testing or attacks on humanity. So whatever they're dumping, biological, chemical, radioactive, it's messing with the fish and the birds and the bees and the water supply and the green plants, trees, agriculture, humans, health, everything. So they shouldn't be dumping stuff into the sky, messing with Mother Nature, in my opinion. So this is part 4 of series 281 on the 2 journals, 139 and 162. And on the unpublished journals on the 4 Winds 10 website, there's 125 of these unpublished journals created over the 10-year period, and 120 of the published ones you can find free PDF, or actually find the books at used book sites. So there's 120 plus 125, almost 250 journals. And then, of course, the newspaper, Liberator and Contact, was every week. So literally over 1,000 of those newspapers, all free PDF, from 1990 to 1999. People who knew what was going on. They were talking about depopulation. So I want to talk about in this video something concerning because of the situation we're in. What I'm going to talk about, you probably won't believe. In the unpublished Phoenix Journal, this one, 162, unpublished, the whole journal, up to 122 pages, is information about the overpopulation and the plans to reduce the population. So apparently it says here, I'm trying to figure out where I really want to start. I just pick a place here and start reading because there's so much material in the whole thing. It's actually unbelievable. All right, page 26. Listen up to this. If you wonder what's going on right now in the world with the worldwide lockdown, and this journal published, does it have a date inside? November 1995. So there was this, in a later chapter of a book called, you might want to find this book, A Higher Form of Killing. in a later chapter from a book called A Higher Form of Killing. The noise of 14,000 aeroplanes advancing in open order. But in the Kurfürstendamm Dam in the 8th arrondissement, so apparently this was over here in Europe, the explosion of anthrax bombs is hardly louder than the popping of a paper bag. So they're dropping these anthrax bombs from planes. Anthrax is quite deadly to everybody in contact. And when they're dropping the bombs, all you hear is a pop. And the anthrax is released into the air to kill the people. In a book called A Higher Form of Killing. The history of chemical and biological warfare has thrown up some strange stories, but few are as bizarre as those which surround a small island off the northwest coast of Scotland. It lies in its own well-protected bay, close to the fishing village of Aultbea, Aultbea, an outcrop of rock well covered with heather, I guess that's some kind of green moss, 300 feet high, 1.5 miles long, and a mile wide. So we're talking about chemical and biological warfare. We're talking about a whole book in 1995, obsessed with overpopulation and methods to reduce the population. And I've been making all those book reviews you saw in my book there, over 500, maybe 600, 1 hour and 2 hours long. And the other series, the New World Order media and press releases, and the live streaming channel, and chemtrails and Sky Spring, and the series I've started this year, Year 2020 Rick Miracle Reports, and some other series that I had created. And because Vimeo canceled my channel a few days ago, after YouTube canceled my channel 10 months ago, I'm now focusing on BitChute.com, publishing my videos. And it seems like a lot of people have found me there. So I wonder how long I'll last there. And I also talk about the Phoenix Journals. If you don't go get those free PDF and get them on your computer, they may disappear. Because as we all know, if you've read 1984, they were banning books. And if you got caught with the books, you could be killed or imprisoned and tortured. Crazy. Aldous Huxley in A Brave New World. There are many books prophesizing all these things that's been going on. They do want a global world order. And here in the United States and the world, apparently there is a huge economic bomb already happening or about to happen. Like I said, this year alone with Rick Sanchez on RT channel on YouTube, or Glenn Beck on his material, and other people, they were feeding the banks $2 trillion, $500 billion a night for a few days. And then with the corona world shutdown, they got a $2.2 trillion stimulus. And then the other day, the Federal Reserve says it's going to shovel another couple trillion. And even a few weeks ago, a high-level politician was calling on the United States to go through bankruptcy. So apparently the whole world's going to have to go through bankruptcy. And what's that going to do when the whole world is shut down for that reason, because of the plunder of the world's money from the people who are controlling all of these countries all over the world? So maybe this issue with the coronavirus outbreak supplied a plausible plan to bring about the global world order while not letting the world know apparently what was really going on. And they have all these methods and tools at their disposal: artificial intelligence, 5G, and other computer technologies that monitor everybody, can track everybody, can kill anybody, satellites with laser technologies. It could prove to be quite a bizarre reality if it all comes out in the open and they actually bring about a World War III with the intention of destroying the population. As Bill Gates said, they wanted to reduce it to zero to stop the carbon dioxide level from rising and causing, first they said global cooling, then they said global warming, then they said climate change, and then they've been promoting sustainability. Then they were using the propaganda of terrorism and so much more: pole shifting, earthquakes, even aliens, UFOs, economic collapse. Crazy. Planet Nibiru passing, causing a pole shift or an invasion by these aliens who have come back to take control of the humans that they created years ago, Zachariah Stitchins, and so much more. It's enough to boggle the mind thinking about this stuff. But let me get back to what I wanted to talk about the biological and chemical warfare programs that were going on. So anyways, on this island off of Scotland, as you draw closer, it's possible to make out the shapes of hundreds of seabirds nesting in the craggy shoreline. Their calls are the only sound which break the silence. Once upon a time, the island is said to have supported 11 families. Today, the only sign of human habitation is the ruin of the crofter's cottage. This utterly abandoned island is Grenard, thanks to a series of secret wartime experiments, the full details of which are still classified. No one is allowed to live or even land here. And I am aware that during the 1980s and 1990s that the corporations who develop weapons for the government of the United States, they were banned to continue creating and testing biological weapons here in America. But in 2017, that legislation was reversed by the President Donald Trump administration. Why would they do that in 2017? And before that and after that, apparently the CDC or other organization, along with Bill Gates, DARPA, have been patenting influenza, coronavirus, and things like that, vaccines. They've been patenting them and developing those technologies. And apparently there was a biological drill going on in Wuhan, China, and also military games going on in China when all of this broke out. So it does seem to indicate that they have all these biological weapons and they are desirous to bring about a global world order and depopulate the planet. I continue to remind us of that. So again, in the later chapter in that book, A Higher Form of Killing, which I recommend that people get. I have to go get it and read it and make a book review on that book. So much to do and so little time. Again, later in the chapter, anthrax had been considered the most practical filling for a biological weapon. A decade earlier, Aldous Huxley had predicted a war involving anthrax bombs. Even before that, in 1925, Winston Churchill wrote of the pestilence, methodically prepared, pestilence, methodically prepared, and deliberately launched upon man and beast, blight to destroy crops, anthrax to slay horses and cattle, plague to poison not only armies, but whole districts. And there has been some talk on some of the channels currently on YouTube right now and other sources, if they've banned you from YouTube, and other people have been banned from Vimeo. But apparently the chatter is that there's a lot of hospitals that are been vacated by regular ill people. If they didn't have, if they could send them home, they did. Apparently some of those people are dying at home. But the hospitals were vacated, and even tent cities were set up. But a lot of people are reporting that there's no customers. There's no patients. There's no overwhelming supply of coronavirus patients. And even in the news today, you can't make this stuff up, but apparently President Donald Trump has accused the WHO, the World Health Organization, and the CDC, the Communication Disease Organization, which apparently is private corporations, canceled their funding because of misleading information. And I did get this weird vibe. I said, maybe the real event hasn't happened yet. Maybe with all those planes dumping stuff in the sky like I videoed today here in the mountains of North Carolina, maybe they could put something like what I'm going to read about in 1995 in this book that you can go get online for free at the 4winds10.com and other Phoenix Journal website. This would be the unpublished Phoenix Journal 162. The whole thing's about depopulation and all these biological chemical weapons they have. And they discuss this thing, even in the United Nations, even in these secret meetings with the Bilderbergers and all these other organizations, as you just heard. So this anthrax is not only for targeting armies, but whole districts. Such are the lines along which military science is remorselessly advancing. Remorselessly advancing. So they're doing all this without any concern for human beings. They're apathetic. They don't care. They just see the population all over the world as numbers, and they don't need the people, so they need to kill the people. They're worried about we, the people, using up too much resources, so they won't have resources to operate the planet for the next 1,000 years for themselves, apparently. And it gets much more nefarious and sinister. I have another book to go over, and you're not going to believe it. I'll just give you a tidbit of information. Apparently, in the Kabbalah, they do have a god. And if you go look up on Yahoo image site, look up Metatron. And apparently Metatron is Lucifer. And Metatron, mentioned in the Kabbalah, his symbol is a six-pointed star. I'll leave it at that. Look up Moloch and you'll see the six-pointed star. Look on certain flags and certain symbols for whole groups of people, the six-pointed star. Back to this book. In 1942, the Chinese allegations were passed on to Winston Churchill. 2 days later, he had them placed on the agenda for the Pacific War Council. So there's nothing new about biological weapons, chemical weapons, and using them against not only armies but whole populations. The growing alarm in London and Washington that the Japanese were on the verge of initiating biological warfare gave an added urgency to the first anthrax bomb test on Grenard that summer. I guess there was some attacks on certain peoples after 9/11 with anthrax letters in the mail. So they have these anthrax chemicals and many others. And like I said, in 2017, they went back to work, the evil corporations building weapons of mass destruction under the President Donald Trump administration. They were allowed to continue to develop the biological influenza, etc., vaccines and the viruses themselves. For what madness, what human would even contemplate doing these kinds of things? Up to then, the Allied germ warfare effort had been largely significantly behind the Japanese, but in 1942 onward, the Anglo-American biological program began to vie with the Manhattan Project for top development priority. So the biological weapons was right up there with the nuclear weapon development priority. So I guess it is a convenient way to have a war and kill all the people. You don't have to destroy all the bridges and the buildings and the infrastructure. You can just spray we the people like we're bugs. Concerning thing to discuss. But hey, you can go get the books, and people smarter than me were writing this, and famous people like Winston Churchill and Aldous Huxley and so many more you're going to hear about in this particular video. The British Biological Warfare Project was born 12 February 1934 at a meeting of the Chiefs of Staff. For 2 years, a disarmament conference in Geneva had been discussing means to finally ridding the world of chemical weapons. Germ warfare had also been included, and in view of this, Sir Maurice Hankey told the service chiefs he was wondering whether it might not be right to consider the possibilities and potentialities of this form of war. So this is what they're thinking. Sir Maurice Hankey told the service chiefs he was wondering whether it might not be right to consider the possibilities, the potentialities of this form of war. So are they thinking to just fumigate the planet and kill the people might be a more humane way of killing them than bombing them or machine gunning them? This is what we're dealing with on the planet right now. Crazy people controlling our planet. From the same chapter in October, the CID approved, and Hankey became chairman of the newly created Microbiological Warfare Committee. In March 1937, the committee submitted its first report, significantly on plague, anthrax, and foot and mouth disease. Though they concluded that for the time being, the practical difficulties of introducing bacteria into this country on a large scale were such as to render an attempt unlikely. They urged that stocks of serum be built up to meet any potential threat. From 1937 to 1940, Britain began to stockpile vaccines, fungicides, and insecticides against biological attack. And I'll tell you now, I've been photographing it and videoing it and documenting it. They've been spraying us with God knows what. But a lot of people have done some research and testing. Apparently heavy metals, aluminum byproducts, strontium, barium, aluminum byproducts. And apparently there's been some dumping of even dried blood biological products, and using a base called coal ash to be the mixture that they could carry the biological materials and other heavy metals. So apparently all across the United States, for example, all of the coal plants have all of that burnt coal ash, which is extremely difficult to dispose of. And if you get a lot of water on it, it just runs away like loose water mud, causing a lot of environmental damage wherever it is. Quite expensive to process and eliminate the coal ash. So apparently the people who have been dumping stuff into the sky since 2005 that I became aware of, and apparently it was going on before that, they're using coal ash as a mixture of the other stuff they're putting in our air. They're saying they're sky spraying it and painting the sky pasty white, blocking out the sun to protect the sun, protect the planet from the sun overheating the earth. So they say. I don't believe it. Okay, in March 1937, I already read that, they submitted the first report specifically on plague, anthrax, and foot and mouth disease, though they concluded that for the time being, the practical difficulties of introducing bacteria into this country on a large scale were such as to render in an attempt unlikely. And like I said again, I'll repeat. We've been sprayed like we're bugs for the past 15 years that I'm aware of. They urged, and there are plenty of videos and books published on it and websites you can look at. Just go look on Yahoo Images and put chemtrailing, sky spraying, geoengineering, and you'll see all the pictures, and on the pictures you'll have links to the websites. It's not disputed we're being sprayed like we're bugs. And that means the environment also, bugs, fish, birds, animals. And there's plenty of evidence to suggest that when they spray pretty heavy, the hospitals are overloaded with people with respiratory problems. And those are facts. Talk to people. They urged that stocks of serum be built up to meet any potential threat. On April 1938, the committee produced a second report, and in June, Henley circulated, this would be, what was his full name? Proposals for an emergency bacteriological service to operate in war. So not only do you have the Navy or the Air Force or the Army, you have an emergency bacteriological service to operate in the war. The emphasis was on defense, the tone still low-key. My, oh my. Maurice Hankey, proposals for an emergency bacteriological service to operate in the war. Winston Churchill, in a most secret minute to the Chiefs of Staff, 6 July 1944, it may be several weeks or even months before I shall ask you to drench Germany with poison gas. And if we do it, let us do it 100%. In the meantime, I want the matter studied in cold blood by sensible people. Drenching Germany with poison gas, studied in cold blood by sensible people. I don't think sensible people would consider such an atrocity. And not by the particular set of psalm singing uniformed defeatists, which one runs across now here and now there. So we don't want any religious Christians or other religious peoples psalm singing uninformed defeatists. And remember, their big issue is overpopulation, climate change, sustainability, economic collapse. The whole system is burdened by all of these wealthy elites who have been pillaging the world for quite a while. So I guess at some time it has to come to an end. And you can only contemplate the methods they might use. And you can only look at the situation we're in today. Just saying, these are issues where everybody should be talking about and thinking about. What people just go about their daily business while we're being sprayed like we're bugs with all that stuff. Anybody can go look up and take a picture of it. But people would prefer to be in absolute denial. It's mind-boggling. And then again, you know, you talk about the 5G microwave transmitters going up everywhere, a few hundred feet apart, sometimes where they have to have it pretty heavy, because microwaves only go a short distance. So you have to have a lot of towers and receivers and transmitters and cameras and everything else. A lot of people are aware of all this. And so they're able to track everybody right now down to the square inch where you are, and apparently radiate certain frequencies to make somebody ill or even kill them. And apparently they got the whole world on lockdown right now, April 15th, 2020. Where will it end? Something like this has never happened in the history of mankind, where the whole world was affected, unless you want to take into account Noah's Ark and the worldwide flood, or even the big issues of World War I and World War II. This is unprecedented. You have to ask yourself, why is it happening? And I do not believe it's a God-made event, a natural event. There's plenty of information on the internet and newspapers. Even President Donald Trump, I guess, announced in the newspaper that they were withholding the funding from the WHO, the World Health Organization, and the CDC, the Center for Communicable Diseases, because of misrepresentation. So you just have to, and then the trillions of dollars being shuttled out of the American money supply, the Federal Reserve. And by the way, when they give themselves $2 trillion this week and $2 trillion last week and $2 trillion next week, and it totals up to 30, 40, 50, 60, I don't know how many trillions. It is the American people through taxes who have to pay that back. And recently the politicians were calling for the United States to go into bankruptcy. And I went shopping for some food today, and there was some concerning observations on certain shelves. For example, the milk department. Most of the dairy products were missing. There wasn't very little. It was staggering. Even in the yogurt department, and we all know a week or two ago it was TP and other issues. In a big place like Sam's, it was beans and other products. Shelves, aisles were empty. So this is not something to be taken lightly. And I hope that I'm mistaken, that all these book reviews that I've done for 15 years and all these books and all these famous authors, I hope we've all been wrong, but it is what it is. Okay, so again from the book called A Higher Form of Killing. At the end of the war, the British alone had manufactured 70 million gas masks, 4 million tins of anti-gas ointment, stockpiled 40,000 tons of bleach for decontamination, 10 million leaflets had been prepared for immediate distribution in the event of a chemical attack, and by a long-standing arrangement, the BBC would have interrupted programs with specially prepared gas warnings. Contingency planning ran down to the smallest details. And again, 4winds10.com, Phoenix Journal websites, find the published journals, find the unpublished journals, find the Liberator newspaper for 1990 and 91, the Contact newspaper from 92 to 99. I don't care which of these books or magazines you read, the journals published, the unpublished, or the newspapers, you're going to get a lot of information by sincere people over that 10-year period trying to warn we the people. And that's why I started doing the Freemasonry and book review series, because I was concerned and alarmed that things were not right. And when I started looking into the different topics, what I discovered is that the books had been written and published by smarter people than I for the past 100 years, 200 years, 300 years, concerning the goings-on on the planet. And I've made book reviews on a lot of those books. No wonder YouTube canceled my channel. No wonder Vimeo had to shut me down. It's a scary situation. London Real, Brian Rose, is it? His one of his channels was taken down because of his recent interview with David Icke and many other people. Richie from Boston was talking about some alarming material. Deborah Traveris, Dane Wigington, Bill Deagle, and many others. Contingency planning ran down to the smallest details. Later in the same chapter in that book, A Higher Form of Killing, again, been doing so much research and other things this spring, especially with this world lockdown. And it is spring. I have to prepare the garden and take care of some personal business. I got some chickens and a chicken coop, and stockpiled a little bit of stuff that I might need. So it's just been an amazing amount of material that keeps falling in my lap. Videos I watch, websites and materials that I read. Max Egan from the Crow House, go see his videos. Again, there's just too many. Later in the same chapter, on Christmas Eve 1949, Moscow radio announced that 12 Japanese prisoners of war were to be charged with waging biological warfare in China. So 49, that would have been 4 or 5 years after World War II. And some Japanese prisoners of war were to be charged with waging biological warfare in China. The Russians claimed, and if you don't think this is current, like I said earlier, 2017, you can look us up. The big corporations were again allowed to begin their biological weapons programs development and vaccines, and apparently DARPA, Bill Gates, and other people, the WHO, the CDC, were all financing these things. And then apparently biological games or drills were happening in China during this event, which during a lot of other bombings and shootings, apparently the same thing was going on, including 9/11. There was a drill going on with planes in the air, faking going into buildings while the actual event happened. Webster Tarpley book, Synthetic 9/11, Synthetic Terror. I made a book review on that one. It was one of my earlier book reviews, 1 or 2 or 3. It was way back then that I read books like that, and I got seriously motivated to expose those books to people. Let's see my index here. Webster Tarpley. That would have been series 12 in 2013, September, probably October. All right, so you got some people. The Japanese had been producing vast quantities of bacteria and had planned to wage biological warfare against the Allies. The allegations became more specific the next week. 3 days later, Moscow radio claimed that Detachment 731 of the Kuwaitian Army had used prisoners of war. I don't think it's Kuwaitian, Kwantung, Kwantung Army had used prisoners of war for horrific biological warfare experiments, and then following the day that one of the prisoners had confessed to his interrogators that the unit had been established on the orders of the emperor himself. On 29 December, Pravda came to the point, the Russian newspaper. The United States was protecting other Japanese war criminals and engaging in biological warfare research itself after World War II. And a lot of people are aware of Project Paperclip, where all those German scientists were rounded up and brought to the United States. And some of them were rounded up and taken to Britain and France and other countries and Russia to get the science that they were working on and continue these weapons of mass destruction after World War II. So it's obvious to me from my research that the Hitler regime, the Nazis, that would not include all the German people, they were did what they were told to do, just like the whole world right now is doing what it's told to do. Just stay at home and stay 10 feet away from everybody. Don't go to work. Don't do anything. And today or tomorrow, you're going to get a $1,200 check. And this thing might go on for months, a year, who knows? And back then, so you can see when in Germany, and they were under a devastating economic condition, that when the government said, hey, these are the enemy and you're to join the army and do this, the German peoples from all this area in several countries did what they were told. Just like all the people right now are blindly doing what we're all told. And I suppose, you know, apparently in some places they're making it illegal and threat of imprisonment, or maybe even worse, if you cause any information to be out there that alarms the citizens. While you get all these YouTube videos and stuff in the newspapers telling us that even President Donald Trump is withholding funding from the WHO and the CDC and many other experts and doctors explaining the realities of a virus, which, by the way, is not a living little critter. If it was a bacterial live thing, then antibodies would kill it. But a virus is basically a toxin, the way I understand it, in your body. And you know what toxins in your body, like poisons in your body, causes you to have flu-like symptoms. And some people were just falling over dead. Flus don't make people fall over dead. So the virus thing is a toxin. And I was thinking, with the stuff they're spraying in the sky every day, could they put something in there to have that be a more detrimental, dangerous toxin and cause people to start dropping like flies all over the planet? When I have all these books that I've made book reviews on the topic of overpopulating and depopulating the planet. Series 35, The Population Bomb by Paul Ehrlich. And The Limits of Growth, I already went over that. The Limits of Growth by the Club of Rome. So all this books and materials since the 1960s after World War II. All these elite were obsessed with overpopulation and coming up with all kinds of programs to resolve the issue. And it's in this book. I mean, I'm barely able to tell you what I've read in here that's just astonishing. And 4winds10.com. I got nothing to do with the Phoenix Journal website or people. I got no money coming to me I'm going to talk to anybody from that organization. I don't know anybody. I'm just a guy sitting out on my patio at home, continuing to do research and share it. So getting back to this book. So apparently the prisoners of war for horrific biological warfare experiments, and then one of the prisoners confessed to his interrogator that the unit had been established by the emperor himself. On 29 December, Pravda, the Russian newspaper, came to the point. the United States was protecting other Japanese war criminals engaging in biological warfare research herself. Quoting still in that book, in the early days after the Second World War, it was extremely difficult for the British or the Americans to check many of the astonishing claims that they came upon in the captured German files. So we all know with the Project Paperclip that they brought all those German scientists, many of them to the United States, took them out in the desert, created cities like Area 51, and continued all of their research and technologies. And here we are today, where everybody's running around with a high-tech computer in your hand, your iPhone and other phones, with advanced camera systems, and you can talk to Siri and Echo and other entities on the phone and get answers to anything. And don't forget, that device can hear everything that you are saying, watch a lot of what you are doing, including the other advanced smart technologies in your home and on the city streets, on the telephone poles and buildings and cameras. And artificial intelligence is everywhere, watching everything, and everybody is probably cataloged. So back to this material here, and I'll end this video shortly. They concluded, however, that there was more than adequate evidence that the Soviet Union had been and was still engaged in some form of biological warfare research. Although a little was known by the nature of the contemporary work, it was thought that the Russians maintained some 6 sites for biological warfare research, most of them in the Ural Mountains. So probably up there by Siberia, remote places. And apparently in the United States there are numerous places where they have been doing this. One of the places was an island right off the coast of Long Island, and a couple grotesque beasts washed up on the shore. Looked like some kind of animal crossed with a human being. And so in the United States, they have a lot of secret underground facilities where they're continuing these things, and all over the world, Pine Gap in Australia, and all over the world. And so we know that the political leaders and even the Vatican is calling for a world currency and a world religion and a world government. And even Mr. Rockefeller said, we will have a global world order, either by peaceful means or otherwise. So if the people really resist, and resist maybe a passive spraying to kill off the unwanted people, if the people resist, I guess they could get a lot nastier with all the technologies they have. The British and Americans recognized that their intelligence was inadequate, but the evidence was judged more than sufficient to justify continuing similar work in the West. When they came to assess the vulnerability of the United Kingdom to a potential germ attack, they discovered that London, containing over 12% of the population, was only 500 miles from air bases in the Soviet-occupied Eastern Germany. When the Joint Technical Warfare Committee assessed how easy a retaliatory strike with biological weapons might be, they realized that the civilian targets against which bacterial devices would be most effective were dispersed across the huge expanse of the Soviet Union. Even using British Empire air bases in Nicosia, Cyprus, that's the island right off the coast of Israel today, and Prajwa, India, there was only one Soviet city of more than 100,000 population within the 500 miles range. And remember, this is back in 1995. And according to my research, you can go look up online. In 2017, the Trump administration and the other government officials reversed the ban on development of these biological weapons. And apparently now people like Fushi, one of the government leaders involved in the world lockdown, and Bill Gates and other organizations are calling for the mass testing and possible vaccination of every human on the planet to ensure that nobody's running around with this particular COVID virus. Seems kind of scary to me. Clearly, at the very least, there should be a major research program aimed at developing some defense. Intelligence, it was freely admitted, was inadequate. But no such reticence found its way into the stories which began appearing in the press. So I just wanted to make a point, and this is a whole book you can go get for free, PDF, Phoenix Journal website, 4winds10.com, unpublished journals, and they got the published journals, then they got the Liberator newspaper, the Contact newspaper, 10 years, thousands of documents, 1,000 plus, and all these different articles I've shown you here, mind control, and amazing stuff to read. British mind control plot to overthrow America, November 15, 1994. All these topics in these magazines about the symbols. Do those symbols look familiar to you? The Pentagon, Exxon, all this stuff is Contact, the Phoenix Project. So you can go on the 4winds10.com and look up the newspapers, the Contact newspapers, and go to the icon that has 1994. And this is the November 15th issue, and you can get this. And it's just completely crazy. Involvement, symbology, you've seen a lot of these symbols. You see the sun's rays. A lot of this is Kabbalah occult. Get this, in this 1995 Contact newspaper, an informed mind is a threat to the puppet masters. Do you see what I'm saying? People knew about this. This issue was 11/2/94, this article. An informed mind is a threat to the puppet masters. So apparently that's why they shut down the YouTube accounts, Twitter accounts, Facebook accounts, Vimeo accounts. And some people have been killed, murdered, even biologists. One year there were several of them mysteriously dying. And then, of course, during the Obama administration, a lot of the military high-level leaders were told to retire. And at one point, a lot of banksters were dying. And so a lot of people, scientists, doctors, have complained about threats, and they can't talk about things they would like to talk about. Just looking at this particular one here. Denying truth only seems the convenient way to go. Denying truth only seems the convenient way to go. So it's so funny when you read this stuff. Oh boy, look at this one. Notes on current events and weather control reminder. Weather control, sky spraying, 1994, 11/6. This is the Contact. I can show you so much. This is the Contact newspaper. British mind control plot to overthrow America. Tavistock, over my finger is here, is a institution over there in Britain. All they do is work on how to mind control we people, propaganda, and lead us down the path they want us to take. They use Freemasonry. They use the Nazis, not all the German people. A lot of scientists have cooperated and worked on experiments with electric shock to the brain and drugs and deprivation, no light, no food, no water. Look at the stuff that's in this book. It's making my point here. Genetically engineered foods, Los Alamos, memory chip, sonic healing. Do you see what I'm saying? And I realize if somebody goes to the 4winds10.com, they'll be so consumed with this material that they won't be able to watch my videos. And that's fine with me. I just want people to wake up. It's important that people wake up. We're in a world lockdown, unprecedented. Gold maneuverings, Bogrits, and more on the fake alien invasion. Contact newspaper, November 15th, 1994, 4winds10.com, Phoenix Journal websites. I'll say this one more time. From 1990 to 1999, 10 years. It's all cataloged by year, 1990, 91, 92, 93, with all the newspapers. The Liberator newspaper for 2 years, the Contact newspaper for 8 years, and other icons where you can get the published journals and print out a list of them, like I did here. So you can methodically have some kind of index system to know what you're looking for. These are the published journals. You can find them at used book sites. Then on the unpublished journals, they even have a little synopsis of what's inside the unpublished journal. And I made a video on this topic. Dark Secrets in Anytown, USA. Multi-generational ritual abuse and murder. That's the unpublished journal 142. Do you see the amount of material and videos I could make just continuing on with the Phoenix journals, the published journals, the unpublished journals, the Liberator weekly newspaper, the Contact newspaper weekly from 1992 to 1999, Larry Nichols, Waving Gun, Dianne Feinstein, the Rothschilds, Henry Kissinger, John Rhodes, Cecil, the Communist Manifesto, Freemasonry. So just saying. Obviously, as you saw in one of these pages I showed, that the elite gets annoyed with informed citizens. So people who are informing the citizens need to be shut down. And they've been doing that on YouTube and Vimeo and Twitter and Facebook. And the material they do put out there is deception and lies. And now we're in a worldwide lockdown. How do you think this is going to end? All those businesses, restaurants, everybody was living on the edge. And being out of work and out of income, how many of the building owners all over the planet are going to tell all of those restaurants and bars and hair salons, etc., gymnasiums, you don't have to pay the rent. We're going to forgive you. How can those landlords do it? Because all the banks have mortgages on all those buildings, and they can't tell all the owners, we're going to forgive your mortgage payment. How's that going to work? It's already been in the news, even in eviction notices to people. And where are they going to get the trillions upon untold trillions to subsidize this whole economic disaster? And already there's discussion in the news about shortages in food supplies, stuff like that. If there was a big farm out west in the United States, a pig farm that recently shut down. That's one of those meats when you go get your hot dogs or bratwurst or knockwurst or whatever in a plastic package. They shut the thing down. That produces 15% of the products. And so is this thing going to trickle on and trickle on? And like I said today when I went shopping, the dairy department was pretty much empty. It was spooky. And then when I went over to the yogurt department, and that was pretty much empty. And of course TP last week or 2 weeks ago. And so how's it going to catch up? Where are the people going to get that other money? And there's stuff in the news already that there's some games being played with the trillions that is supposed to be available. And actually a lot of people have gone online trying to get some of this money, and they're running up against the wall. So it does look like worldwide something is planned. There were warnings in these books about the whole thing about eliminating or reducing the population, like the Georgia Guidestones in the United States. Georgia, United States. Look up the Guidestones. It says on the Guidestones they want a world population of 500 million. They say going on 7 billion. So I guess 6 billion people need to die. And instead of having nuclear bombs exploding everywhere, maybe somebody would use chemical, biological weapons. I hope not. I'm not trying to spread fear because, first of all, I believe we're spiritual beings. And if it's my time to go, I'm out of here. And we came to planet Earth as a spiritual being, born into these biological bodies. We're going to die, and we're going to go back to the spiritual world. So it is very important on how you behave. Fear is not an option. Revenge is not an option. Hate is not an option. Killing is not an option. If it all happens, it is a purpose and a method for it all. And I guess if you follow prophecy in the Bible, it's supposed to come to the brink of the end of the world before God intervenes. So we're all supposed to watch this thing as if we're an outsider, without fear, without worry. Doesn't matter if they drag us kicking and screaming and try to get people to swear allegiance to this Lucifer, Metatron, demon being, fallen angel. Just say no. And if they kill us, they commit murder. But if we join them, well, then you go down with the ship with the evil people or entities, whatever they are. So no fear. Don't even think that way. Have a love in your heart, an open mind, and don't go along, in my opinion, with whatever they want to inject us with, or get people to go to FEMA camps and places where you'll never come out, in my opinion. Thank you for listening to me, my book review, video, ranting, whatever. But it is a concerning time, and I will post this video, and hopefully my channel that I am on now will stay up. And I need people to go look up these Phoenix journals and all these other books that I've done book reviews on. The Limits to Growth, The Depopulation Bomb. Just look up these words. The Club of Rome. I showed you the pages of those 282 books and authors. Go back to that part of this video, or go to my website, Rick Miracle, and print out the list. I need to update it. Probably the last 10 or 15 book reviews are not on there. But there's a whole index there, and a lot of my videos are now on BitChute. I was trying to load stuff up on Brighteon, but apparently sometimes they just take so long to download my video, and probably because they're larger videos, 1 or 2 hours. So I have been reprocessing those videos to have a lower pixel rate Instead of 1080 or 720, I got down to 520. And apparently it's a smaller gigahertz size video, so that they'll take it on the download. So I need to reduce the quality, although when you're watching it on your computer or laptop or whatever TV screen, it probably looks just fine. But the high resolution seems to create a very large file, and it has difficulty downloading. So those are the trials and tribulations of my reality. Getting this stuff posted, which is a daunting task if you think about it. Having it all up, 700-800 videos, over 1,000 hours. You realize how long it takes to try to go through that and index it and sort it and get it out there in a coherent way. And then again, you have to have the concern in the back of your mind, some guys in black suits going to show up on the driveway. Is free speech gone? Are we supposed to just lay down and take this and people lose their wealth and their health and their lives? No, we have to have faith and talk to God, and talk to God a lot. Thank you for watching my video. Rick Miracle reporting.